Hello everyone, Jonathan here, and I wanted to set aside a little bit of time to take a look at Axis and Allies Anniversary Edition. This is a version of the game I know many of us were excited to get our hands on. It was released limited printing back in, I think it was 2007, maybe 2008, and then they didn't make any more copies, and as a result, this version sold for upwards of $500. I saw on eBay. At least 300, 3 to 500, maybe a little bit more, depending on when you happen to be looking. So it's quite expensive and not a version that most people had, including myself. I did not have a copy. It is generally considered one of the better, one of the more balanced versions of the game, aside from perhaps Global 40. This is the version that has the most to it. It's got the largest map. It does include Italy and has some special rules along with it. You'll also notice what I have set up here. There are some Axis control markers, German control markers in Russia, the Soviet Union. Some Japanese control markers over here. That's because another little bonus you get with this game, it contains a 1941 setup where all the countries control just what's within their territory, as well as a 1942 setup. So you'll see that is what I have set up here, where Germany has invaded the Soviet Union, whereas Japan has attacked a lot of the British islands down here. And I don't recall how far into Asia they are, but they wouldn't have Burma in 1941. Things are also set up a little bit differently. The U.S. has a bigger navy over here. There is no British fleet, little fleet down by Australia. We swing over this way. Italy has slightly more units over here. You'll also notice that the U.S. has a bomber already in the United Kingdom, and that is because this is the 1942 setup. So I don't see this video being a particularly, going through each country one at a time to do strategy, but I did want to make a few observations, and when I do the individual nations videos, I'll get into more detail. But this is going to be based on my observation and also my experience playing in tournaments at Origins earlier this year. So one of the differences between the 41 setup and the 42 setup is that in the 41 setup, I believe Germany goes first and Italy goes third. In 42, I believe it's the opposite. The Soviet Union goes second in both cases. Let's see, England, or no, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Japan and Germany switch places. In 41, Germany goes first, Japan goes third. In 42, Japan goes first, Germany goes third. Soviet Union goes second in both cases. And then you have, I believe it's England, Italy, and the U.S. Going 4, 5, and 6. That might not be right. I think that's it. Those three countries go in the same order, 4, 5, and 6 in both the 41 and 42 setup. So if you're looking for a little bit of a faster game, 42 is probably the way to go because the units, the armies are a little bit more advanced at that point. So in this situation, we have Japan going first. Japan has a couple things to worry about. Taking out this navy here is always a good idea, assuming you don't need your planes for something else. You go before England, so you'd be able to hit it. There's nothing they can do about it. You can't quite get to this lone transport over here. Depending on what England does with this, if it comes this way, it might be something you hit on the second turn if it is still defenseless. Right now on turn 1, there's nothing you can do about it. So just keep an eye on it, and if it ends up being by itself and you can take it out, then take it out. As you come over here, you're not going to have enough to take India on the first turn, but you might try and range things. Maybe you build a factory, maybe you funnel some troops down this way. India is worth 3 production if you are going by Victory City if you are allowing victory cities to determine the winner, it is also a victory city. There is no factory down here, so you don't need to worry about England fortifying a ton, but you're probably not going to get it the first turn or two. Looking at China, for every... oh, and I see these should be Chinese troops. I must have grabbed American out of the box. But in any case, China doesn't get IPCs. Those IPC values that you see there are what Japan would get if Japan takes them over. What China gets for every 2 Chinese territories, Chinese territory being one that has one of these little symbols on it. You can see throughout there, as well as some territories that Japan controls here. Kwangtung is not actually considered Chinese. For every 2 of those territories that are not under Axis control, China gets an infantry. So if you're China, and China goes on the US's turn, though their units are not allowed to fight together, they can't like combo attack on something, like the US drops off troops here and China moves in. This is an American fighter, but it officially fights with China. And so if I'm China, I'm just going to be looking for weak spots in the Japanese line, especially if the Japanese fleet is off somewhere else and they're not going to be able to swing around with transports and coastal bombardments to wipe out my army. That is something you do want to be paying attention to, these border territories. There's a good chance that Japan will swing back around and smack you away if you don't have a sizable force, so just be careful with these border territories. But anything further inland is easier for China to take and hold on to. You also want to watch out for this fighter. That is your only real offense, otherwise you're rolling with infantry on the attack, that's it. So you do not want to lose that fighter. You don't want it to be in a territory that Japan is able to attack and wipe out the forces that are there. And on the other side of it, if you're playing as Japan, always keep an eye on that fighter. And if it's somewhere that you can take it out. And that is going to severely reduce China's strength. And you're going to have a much easier time moving in here. Or you'll need fewer forces for here if you want to go down this way than you otherwise would. Coming up this way, we've got the Soviet Union up here. As always, they've got a lot of infantry up there. That's going to be probably pinning down some Japanese units here. Or at least Japan will have to funnel more over if it does move them out. Now, if I'm the Soviet Union, or if I'm Japan, I'm going to want to leave just enough here to cause the Soviet Union to pause and not attack me, and I'm going to want to send everything else somewhere else. Probably this way, but maybe this way. If I'm the Soviet Union, I'm going to be watching Manchuria. How many infantry, or however many units, what does Japan have there? And based on my force up here, which will be mostly, if not all, consolidated right here, can I take it out? Because if I can, that is going to be a severe hindrance to Japan. They're going to lose 3 production. They're going to have to pull back from China potentially, or pull up this way, which weakens them down here. That means China gets more guys. That means India down here survives a little bit longer. It's bad news all around. Now, over here in the Pacific, Japan can attack Pearl Harbor here. It does have the forces, and it is going to go before the U.S. In either setup, 41 or 42. Taking out that American fleet is something that I oftentimes do like to do. You aren't able to get your Navy from here down that way. You can get your bomber from Japan down here if you want to. Now, America can swing down with its fleet here, and it has a bomber as well as a fighter, and then the fighter here that can get into the fight. So there's a good chance they'll counter and you'll lose whatever you have here. But depending on how much you send in, you just have to decide if that's worth it for you. You can send a sub, a destroyer, a cruiser over here, as well as a carrier, that fighter, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this fighter here can come here. He has to land on the carrier. The battleship can't make it, and then the bomber. So that's, I don't really see that as a good or a bad. That's just a preference sort of thing. At least at this point, I need to play a few more rounds to feel that out a little bit more. So in Africa, so let's talk England a little bit. There, you don't have enough here, at least at the beginning of the game, to take that out. And neither Italy nor Germany has enough to come in here and take that out. So you're kind of stalemated, like historically accurate. You do have this transport down here. As I mentioned before, make sure that it is out of range of any enemy ships or airplanes so you don't inadvertently lose it. But having this transport can be very useful in getting these guys from South Africa somewhere else a lot faster. And then over here you have the normal dynamic where Germany's got a couple subs out here, England's got some navy there, the US has fleet here and here. Now, one of the things that I saw at Origins that I really liked is Germany building a carrier on its first turn right here. Now, because of the way the sea zones are set up, you can hit this, your transports can hit England directly, as can any fighters on the carrier. The fighters on the carrier also have plenty of freedom of movement to swing over here. So you, for the cost of a carrier, you're protecting your transport here, even if you decide to move the rest of your fleet out to attack. They cannot get here on the first turn, though. But if you move your fleet out, the transport is still protected with that carrier. You are giving yourself the ability to send your two of your fighters either this way or this way, which threatens England, slows them down, which lets you, even if you don't go after England, put more pressure over here, which is nice. So I do enjoy that move. You also, both on the Soviet side, want to be aware of it, and on the Axis side, you want to take advantage of it, are the can openers. So in one of these setups, I believe, it would be 41, Italy goes and then Germany goes. So Italy goes at the bottom of the order, and then Germany goes at the top before Russia goes. In the 42 setup, sorry, I'm having a brain freeze. In the 42 setup, it's the opposite. So if Italy and Germany can work well together, they can potentially do a can opener maneuver over here, which will be very helpful for them. If I'm the Soviet Union, I want to be aware of the fact that if I just leave like one infantry defending a territory thinking that's going to block the Axis, it probably won't, because either Germany or Italy will go first, wipe it out, and then the other one will follow through. Now, starting off the game as the Soviet Union in a 42 setup, you do go before Germany. I take stock of what I see over here. And right along the front, I've got a German tank here, I've got 2 more German tanks here, and an artillery. I have some infantry back here, can't really do a whole lot about them, and a fighter back here I can't touch. But I should have the forces. I can wipe out a bunch of German tanks, kind of throw them back, and then they're going to spend their effort trying to push forward, move more tanks forward that hopefully I can counterattack. That should work at least for the first 2 to 3 turns. Now, that is going to be a losing battle because Germany does have an economic advantage, but by that point you hope that England is in the war, that the US is in the war over here. Well, at least England, possibly the US, though on the other hand, a strategy that I like in this game, especially if you're doing victory cities, is for the U.S. to focus heavily on Japan. The U.S. can come over here, especially if Russia's caused some damage here, and just start swinging down and cause all sorts of chaos. Also, if you're going by victory city, you've got Hawaii that's a victory city. You don't want to give that up to Japan. Japan has the Philippines as a victory city, so if you can take that as America, that'll be helpful. Conversely, if you're Japan, you want to protect this, and you want to take Hawaii. So that's an incentive for these two powers to fight in the Pacific rather than have Japan just rush this way. If you're not going by Victory City, that's a little bit less important, but it could still work. And then as you go over here, you've also got Calcutta, that if the Allies, if the U.S. controls the naval situation, they're going to have a much easier time swinging down here and getting that. So I actually like, in this version, it's probably the only version, I like the U.S. going after Japan, and then Russia and England dealing with Germany. It can get a little bit tricky. You do have Italy down here, of course. You can't forget about them. Their production is way less than the other powers, but you can't forget about them. If you have the opportunity to either clear out their navy or do a lot of strategic bombing on them, that can really hurt them, because they don't have a whole lot of production after spending it to repair their factory. There's not going to be a whole lot left. So that's just my general overview. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm planning to make a few more Anniversary Edition videos, just kind of like what I did with the other versions of the game, going through country by country and then alliance by alliance. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I hope everybody has a great weekend.